Sivaya Nama Tiruchitrambalam. Welcome back to our discussion on the 9th Thirumurai, 17th Thirupathigam and the very first verse. With Lord Shiva's grace, we have already concluded 16 Thirupathigams from the 9th Thirumurai. Today, by his grace, we are going to start with the next Thirupathigam, which is number 17. This is written to a place called as Thiruvidai Marudhoor. This deity, as in this place, is sung by all the three saints, as in Thiruñana Sambandar, Thirunavukarasar and Nambi Arurar. Now we are going to start with the very first verse. This is also in Panjamam Pan, Tiruchitrambalam. Veyya Senjothi Mandalam Poliya Vingirul Nadunal Yamathor Payya Sembandal Paruvani Umildu Paviyen Kadal Seikadil Ayya Sembun Totavir Sadai Molupin Azhivazhagiya Thirunitru Payya Sengandathu Andavanavarkon Maruvidam Thiruvidai Marudhoor. Thiruchitrambalam. Today's verse is very practical verse that is given to us. Here Lord Shiva is in the place called as Thiruvidai Marudhoor. He is the one who is going to be the savior for the entire souls that is there in this world. Here, when we look at this verse, he is giving an analogy or a metaphor of sun. It's an analogy, it's sun. When we look at sun, there is so bright light coming from it, but in between the sun's rays, there is pitch darkness, which has been proven by the latest science as of now. How is this going to be related to us, right? If you talk about souls like us, we are leaning towards sun, which is Lord Shiva, that at that point in time, we are bright. The moment we shift like a pendulum, when we shift towards Arnavam, to the worldly things, we get the darkness. So we are shifting between the light and the darkness in our day-to-day life. That is what the very first verse, statement talks about. The next one he says is, if you look at a snake, the snake has poison. We all know snake venom is really poisonous. Now this venom, when it did not use it for a very long time, it solidifies and it becomes one of the most precious gems, which is called as Nagamani. Similar to what we have. If you look at a snake, the snake's poison is in its mouth, similar to what we are doing as of now. We are talking something, we are speaking. When we are talking, if we speak words about Shiva, if we are talking about Shiva, or if we are singing about Shiva, or if we are discussing like satsang and all these about Shiva, then our words becomes Nagamani. If we are not talking about Shiva, but we are talking about whatever is happening in this world, then these words are considered to be venomous. So what needs to be coming out from our mouth? We are the one who's going to decide it. But remember, once we start giving Nagamani, that is what Lord Shiva loves to hear, and that is what he's wearing as his earrings also, to say that he has acknowledged our speech, our words, our thoughts. This beautiful, these beautiful experiences are happening in the place called as Thiruvidai Marudhoor. Here, Lord Shiva has a beautiful, he's having Ganges, and the Ganges, the water from the Ganges is purifying us. Because of that, we are getting rid of our karmic deeds, and along with that, he is also giving us the holy ashes, which means he is initiating us in this path of Saivism, and he is making sure that we are getting into the path of the spirituality in order to reach his lotus feet. That is what verse number 1, first verse talks about. Sivaya Nama Tiruchitrambalam. And the second verse, the verse goes this way, Tiruchitrambalam. Indiralogam muzhuvadum pani kettu inayadi tozhudezhatham poi ஐந்தலை நாகம் மேகலை அறையா ஆகம் தோறும் பலி திரியாடிகள் தந்திரி வீணை கீதம் முன் பாட சாதி கிண்ணாரம் கலந்தோலிப்ப மந்திர கீதம் தீங்குழல் எங்கும் மறுவிடம் திருவிடை மருதே. திருச்சிற்றம்பலம். Today's verse also talks about what kind of an effort Lord Shiva is taking in order to take this Anava Malam, take away this Anava Malam from us and make us relish in the everlasting happiness. So what he is trying to do is, first, even though everyone knows that he is the Deva Deva, which means all the Devas are worshipping him. Everyone is waiting for his command. Everyone is waiting for his command and just praying to him in order to get his grace. But what Lord Shiva does is very simple. He's just wearing a normal tiger skin he's not even wearing a very expensive cloth. His wardrobe is so simple. He's just wearing a simple tiger skin. On top of it, he's wearing a snake. This snake has got 5 heads, which means this represents the Pancha Kale, which is Nivarti Kale, Pradita Kale, Vidya Kale, Nivarti Kale, Shanti Kale and Shanti Adida Kale. All these you will see in Saiva Siddhanta. So Lord Shiva wears this particular belt just to make sure that the skin doesn't roll off, and then he is walking all the way to individual houses in order to get alms from them. Imagine, what does Lord Shiva not have in order to get alms, and what do we have so that we can offer to him? It is obviously our entanglement. He doesn't know what is entanglement. Obviously, we are having tons and tons and tons of entanglement. So what he's asking us to give him is this Arnava. Once we give this, the benefit is going to be for us. By giving, we benefit. How do we benefit? We will start moving in the path of spirituality, and we can start getting into the path of yogam. This yoga will give us a beautiful experience where we will start to hear all the beautiful music, as in music from strings and string musical instruments, as well as they call it as flute. Similar to flute, they have something in South India as well. So we will start hearing all these like flute kind of sounds and all these, which is very melodious, and that represents that a soul is already in the yogic form. Once we start moving in the yogic direction, obviously we know we will easily be able to achieve Lord Shiva's lotus feet. That is what verse number 2 is all about. Here we don't need to experience, we don't need to argue whether there are so many world or whatever. Just from our own house itself, we can imagine what kind of an approach Lord Shiva is taking in order to take each one of us as his devotee. The way how he took me was not the same way as what he's doing for my husband. So in a house itself, in just one single house where we are all living together, but the way, the strategy that he uses is entirely different. So all we have to do is just surrender, not to analyze much, just surrender, let him take care of all the other stuffs. That is what verse number 2 is all about. Sivaya Nama Tiruchitrambalam. And the third verse, the verse goes this way: Tiruchitrambalam. பனிபடு மதியம் பயில் கொழுந்தன்ன பல்லவம் வள்ளி என்றிங்கன் வினைபடு கனகம் போலயவையுமாய் வீங்குல ஒழிவர நிறைந்து துணிபடு கலவி மலை மகளுடனாய் தூங்கிருள் நடுநல் யாமத்து என் மனநிடை அணுகி நுணுகியுள் கலந்தோன் மறுவிடம் திருவிடை மருதே. திருச்சிற்றம்பலம். Today's verse talks about again one another beautiful concept. Lord Shiva is there with us. We all know that. But since when he came and joined us, or since when he is with us, this is one of the questions we always keep asking. And this particular verse comes as an answer for that. Here they say Lord Shiva was with us right from day one. When we say day one, it is the time when we were in the state called as Kevalam. Kevalam means 100% we were in the domination of Arnavam, entanglement. We did not even know that we had something called as happiness. We were not even able to relate that there was something called as happiness in this world. All we knew was only this entanglement, and we were with this entanglement alone. Now, what did Lord Shiva do? He showered his grace on us, made sure that we are able to move to the next level. That is where he started showering his grace on us. His grace comes along with his consort. So both of them came together, made sure that we are moving to the next state. The next state is the one where we started moving on to something called as Sagala Nilai. Sagala means where we are given this body, we are given this world, we are given all the pleasures in order to get rid of our karma and move towards the state called as Suddham. Suddham is the place, or Suddham is the state where we will only be having happiness, and this happiness is not going to be because of any particular person or because of any particular thing. Rather, this happiness is going to be a permanent happiness, which is the real ultimate goal of the soul. This is what verse number 3 here talks about. Lord Shiva was there all along. Now, imagine when we wanted to do some kind of these kind of changes and all these, there must be a little bit of a catalyst for this. Lord Shiva works as a catalyst in order to convert us into pure gold. As of now, we are a piece of copper or a piece of iron or whatever. Now, how can he make us as a piece of gold? He knows all those kind of, he's the best chemist in the world that we can think of. He knows all these kind of, the chemical reactions and all these, and he works as a catalyst. He works as a catalyst to transform us from one state to the other so that we can peacefully, all we have to do is just surrender ourselves 100%. After that, he will take care of what needs to be done and when it needs to be done and everything. This is what verse number 3 is all about. Sivaya Nama Thiruchitrambalam, and the 4th verse. The verse goes this way, Thiruchitrambalam. அணியுமிழ் சோதி மணியினுள் கலந்தாங்கு அடியானினுள் கலந்தாடியேன் பணி மகிழ்ந்தாருளும் அறிவை பகத்தன் பாடர் சடை விடமிடற்றடிகள் துணியுமிழாடை அறையில் ஒராடை சுடருமிழ் தர அதன் அருகே மணியுமிழ் நாகம் அணியுமிழ் தீமைப்ப மறுவேடம் திருவிடை மருதே. திருச்சிற்றம்பலம். Today's verse talks about the way how Lord Shiva is there within the soul. If you look at the ruby, the stone, the precious stone called as ruby, you will be able to see a light, a radiance in that particular stone. Where did this radiance come from? When did this light get in, and how is it enlocked into this particular crystal? No one has an answer, but all we know is the light or the radiance is there within the stone and it permeates from within. Similar to Lord Shiva, who got into us, into our soul, but we don't know when he got in, but at the same time we are sure that he's not going to get out of our heart as well as in our soul as well. But he is hidden within. Only when we get the right stage of maturity, he will start to show himself. He is hidden within us, within all of us. That is something which we need to understand, which we need to realize, and which we need to relate with. Only then we can start appreciating these verses. So Lord Shiva is within us. Who is he? He is the one who is in the form of Ardhanarishwara, which is on his left hand side of his body he has given to his consort, and he is the one who has a beautiful black mole on his throat. This particular mole is not like what we are having. It is not just superficial, but it is from within. Similar to how the light permeates from within in a ruby, similar to that, Lord Shiva is also having this poison on his throat, which is the radiance is coming from within, and that is why he is called as Neelakantan. Now this Neelakantam is a representation, it's actually an analogy, a metaphor. It is to say that Lord Shiva is taking or absorbing all our ignorance, and he is showing it to us, saying that your ignorance is the one which is staying as a mole in my throat. Lord Shiva, who is there in this particular place called as Thiruvidai Marudhoor, he is the one who wears a beautiful cloth, a dress, and on top of it, similar to what we are having right now, like pants and then a belt on top of it, he does have a belt, and the belt is nothing but a beautiful snake. And Lord Shiva is in the place called as Thiruvidai Marudhoor, who is the one who is also within me, in my soul. He cannot be split, he cannot go away, he is just there within me. That is what verse number 4 is all about. Sivaya Nama Tiruchitrambalam, and the 5th verse. The verse goes this way, Tiruchitrambalam. பந்தமும் பிரிவும் தெரிபொருட்பனுவல் பாடி வாழி சென்று சென்றேரி சிந்தையும் தானும் கலந்ததோர் கலவி தெரியினும் தெரிவுரா வண்ணம் எந்தையும் தாயும் யானும் என்றிங்கன் எண்ணில் பல்லூழிகளுடனாய் வந்தணுகாது நுணுகியுள் கலந்தோன் மறுவிடம் திருவிடை மருதே. திருச்சிற்றம்பலம். Today's verse is a very, very deep, there's a lot of meaning in this particular verse itself. To be very honest, we can meditate on this verse, and we should also be digesting this slowly. We at least need one whole month to think about this particular, to discuss about this particular verse. Let's try our 5-minute series with this. If you can imagine a soul, as in we, being tied inside water, and the rope that we are tied up is called as our ignorance and also our karma. So what has happened is we are suffocating within water. And what is that? We are tied with our own karma and our own anavam, which is ignorance. Now we need to get ourselves, we have to set ourselves free from this particular rope. How to do that? That is where Lord Shiva has given us something called as Dhanu Karana Bhuvana Bhogam, which is nothing but this body, this entire world, and all the pleasures that we are going through. The pleasures are not just for us to enjoy, but we have to use those pleasures in a prudent manner so that we can liberate ourselves from this particular rope or whatever has been tied us on. Once we realize that we are tied and we are suffocating, only then we can think about liberating ourselves, isn't it? If we don't accept that we are being tied, we can't liberate ourselves. So first is we need to understand our bandhu. Bandhu is nothing but the one that we are entangled with. Then we need to know how to liberate ourselves with this pirivu. So once we know these two, or in order to know these two, what Lord Shiva has done is he has given all these beautiful Tirupadigams. Tirupadigams are there to liberate us from the pain and the suffering that we are going through as of today. Now, Lord Shiva has given this. When did he give this? Not just yesterday or today or tomorrow alone. It's not just now, but we have seen so many ice ages. We have been through a lot of experiences in this soul manner. Lord Shiva has been with us all along. All along, the moment he decided to liberate us, he has been with us, and he's trying to teach us as a mom, as a dad, or even our own conscience. So he is there within us, teaching us ways so that we can get that particular conscience and we can liberate ourselves from this birth and death vicious cycle. Now, where is Lord Shiva residing? He is in the place called as Thiruvidai Marudhoor. This Lord Shiva is the one who is helping us liberate ourselves from this birth and death life cycle, as in this particular vicious cycle. And he is not just there only with us as, and we call it as Advaitam, which is basically to say that he is always with us. not just always with us, but He is also within us to guide us and make sure that we are safe and sound in whatever step we are trying to take. That is what verse number 5 is all about. Sivaya Nama Thiruchitrambalam. And the 6th verse. The verse goes this way, Thiruchitrambalam. Yeri taru kari kaatidu pinaninamundu epamitilangiyil thalalvai Thurugazhal nedumpe kanam ezhundadum Thungirul nadunal yamate Arul puri muruval mugil nila yeripa Andi ponrolir thirumeni Variyara aada ஆடும் எம் பெருமான் மறுவிடம் திருவிடை மருதே திருச்சிற்றம்பலம். Today's verse resonates with one padigam from the 11th Thirumurai, which is written by Karaikal Ammayar. Exactly the same concept is being resonated in this particular padigam also, in this verse also. Here Lord Shiva, it describes the place where Lord Shiva is. Lord Shiva is in the place which we are all very scared to get into, graveyard. And we know what happens in a graveyard. Either we will be burying the dead bodies or we will burn it. Whatever happens when the dead body is there, there's so much of fat in the body that the fat is coming out, and in order to eat those fats, there are so many ghosts going around in that particular place. And these ghosts are eating all the fat, and then it is moving on to the next dead body so that they could be fed on. Imagine this particular situation. If you can visualize this, it sounds scary, isn't it? But where is this graveyard? Who are the ghosts? And what is this fat all about? That is something we have to understand based on the earlier verse. The earlier verse said, we are being entangled in this world, and there are ways to get rid of this entanglement, which is Thirupadigams. Now, if we are getting entangled, what we are all into is the graveyard. If we don't try to realize this truth, and if we don't try to liberate us from this, what will happen? We will start running behind what we call it as a rat race. All sort of rat race that we are indulged in as of today, in order to just grow this outer body, we are all ghosts, because we are not trying to understand the real purpose of this life. So what happens? We become ghosts. And what are we trying to eat? The fat which is totally unhealthy to us, which is nothing but the worldly pleasures that we are getting as of today. Any kind of a worldly pleasure that we are able to see around us is categorized under this particular fat. So how do we liberate ourselves from this? We need to start moving on and reading padigams. Only then we will start to move away from this graveyard, the same place where Lord Shiva is. Shiva is in the country as well as in the graveyard. But how do we want to see this place? Do we want to be seen as a ghost, or do we want to be seen as a saint? The same soul, when we are running behind what we call it as a rat race, we become the ghost that is being elaborated in this verse. The moment we try to understand the truth and we start running behind Thirupadigams, that is where we will start to live a saintly life. And who can do that? Only Lord Shiva can give us this transformation. That is what verse number 6 is all about. In this they say, how do we liberate ourselves and get away from this fat, get away from this ghost, and get away from this graveyard? The only way is we have to start with Thirupadigams. Once we start reciting Thirupadigams, slowly our conscience will move away from the worldly pleasures and get on to the path which can help us liberate. That is what verse number 6 is all about. Sivaya Nama Thiruchitrambalam. And the 7th verse. The verse goes this way, Thiruchitrambalam. எழிலையாள் செய்கை பாசுங்காலன் வீசும்பின் இன்தோழி பட நனைந்துருகி ஆழலையாள் பூருவம் புனலோடுங்கிடந்தாங்கு ஆதனின் மாதரார் கலவி தொழிலையாள் நெஞ்சம் இடர்பட வண்ணம் தூங்கிருள் நடுநல் யாமத்து ஓர் மழலையாள் சிலம்ப வந்தகம் புகுந்தோன் மறுவேடம் திருவிடை மருதே. திருச்சிற்றம்பலம். Today's verse is a beautiful verse. We all should be meditating on this verse, and we have to also keep this as our prayer on a daily basis. In this verse, the author Karuvoor Thevar, he says, in this world we are all like a vessel. The vessel which is made of mud, we call it as pot, right? If you look at the pottery, because we do have a lot of interest groups and we have a lot of hobbies right now with pottery. So if you go to a place where they are making pot, you will be able to see the clay which is being mixed, and then they will be making beautiful vessels and pots out of it. If they don't process this pot properly and they are just keeping outside, just one drop of water is sufficient to destroy the entire pot. But if the pot is processed properly, it can be so strong that it can hold water within. So what kind of a person are we? Are we like a newly made pot without any, as in we have not gone through the proper process, or do we want to be as a processed pot? That is the most important question we need to be asking ourselves. As of today, there are so many water droplets out there, which is to destroy the pot, which is us. The pot is we, as in you have to imagine the soul, and the water droplets that we are talking about is anything that can cause distraction. Right now we have mobile phones, we have the cinemas, we have so many information that the entire world is filled with so many recreations which is not bringing us to the right path. Those are all water droplets which can just make sure that we are going back to our original form, which is just mud or clay rather. Now, what Karuvoor Thevar is keeping as a prayer is, Lord Shiva, I've surrendered to you. Make sure that I am not getting on to a state which is like the pot that is being mentioned here, which has not been processed. So I should not be tempted with whatever I'm seeing today around me. I should not be carried away by the worldly attractions, all the beautiful, the lights that we are seeing around us, which is very, very temporary. We shouldn't be, because it's so twinkling around in front of us, and it just attracts us so much. We get fascinated that we forget about our real cause, the purpose of our birth itself. That is something which we need to understand in a more clear manner. So we need to step on to the next state. Can we do that on our own? Obviously no. So the Lord Shiva is going to be there. He has to be with us and guide us in the proper manner so that we don't get distracted along the way, and we are able to reach his lotus feet. We are able to see this example even today around us. Someone would be looking at us and they will ask, can I also have a Rudraksh so that I can tie to my neck? We will be giving them. They'll tie it, they'll go back home, and someone in their family will say, Ayya, you're so young, why do you want to wear a Rudraksh at this age itself? Your entire life will be ruined if you wear Rudraksha. Whatever nonsense. You can hear a lot of such nonsense around us. Now, if this soul is not a processed pot, what will it do? It will just be carried away by those droplets. It will start removing and keeping it aside, isn't it? But are we in a position to say, no, my Shiva will give me everything, and I am going to wear this Rudraksh, and this will guide me in the proper manner? If we have that confidence, Lord Shiva will guide us. Now, how to get that confidence? Of course, it is not in our hands. We have to let this also be handled by Lord Shiva. That is what verse number 7 is all about. Sivaya Nama, Thiruchitrambalam. And the 8th verse, the verse goes this way, Thiruchitrambalam. Veyyavam பெற்றம் இருடையார் மாதவர் காதல் வைத்தென்னை வெய்யவாம் செந்தி பட்ட இட்டிகை போல் விழுமியோன் முன்பின் என்கோ நொய்யவாரென்ன வந்துள் வீற்றிருந்த நூறாயிர கோடி மையவாங் கண்டத்து அண்டவனவர்கோன் மறுவிடம் திருவிடை மருதே. திருச்சிற்றம்பலம். Today's verse should be seen as a continuation from verse 7. If you recall verse 7, in that Karuvoor Thevar said, we are something like a pot which is made out of clay and it was not processed properly. Hence, one droplet of water was sufficient to destroy our love for Lord Shiva. Today, the same verse comes in a different manner to talk about the maturity level. Lord Shiva, who is riding a bull. Now, if we ask someone what vehicle they have, that is going to represent their status. If someone says that they own a BMW or an Audi or a Ferrari, then we all know their status is quite high. But when someone says, oh, I ride on a bull or a bullock cart, we always look down on them. So here he says, Lord Shiva is the one who's riding a bull, but don't look down on him because he is the Deva Devas. He is the Deva of all the Devas. Whoever you name, he is the leader for everyone in this world. Not only in this world, how many ever galaxies are there and how many ever galaxies are yet to be created, he is a part. He is basically the one who creates the galaxies and he is the leader of those galaxies. That kind of person is Lord Shiva, who is my God. What he did was, he made sure I'm among devotees. The main advantage of being among devotees is we are, human beings are a product of the environment. If we are among certain group of people who always talk negativity, we will also start accumulating that and we will also be influenced by that vibration. So, wherever we are, among whoever we are, that will be the influence that we are going to have. That's why people usually say, tell me your friend, I will know about you. The most important one is, who is our friend? We need to always be among devotees so that we get influenced in a positive way in our spiritual path. And once we get that maturity, obviously Lord Shiva is also going to add the maturity in such a way that the normal clay is going to be a little bit solid and in such a way that we are ready to hold on to the same water. Water here is Lord Shiva because he is the one who can flow in us and he is the one who can make us or give us the ever permeating happiness or blissful state. So that is what verse number 8 is all about. Sivaya Nama, Tiruchitrambalam, and the 9th verse. The verse goes this way, Tiruchitrambalam. Kalam kalam பொய்கை பூனல் தெளிவிடத்து காலந்த மண்ணிடை கிடந்தாங்கு நலங்காலந்தாடியேன் சிந்தையுள் புகுந்த நம்பனி வம்பனினுடைய பூலம் கலந்தவனே என்று நின்றுருகி பூலம்பூவாராவம் புகாரருவி மலங்கலங்கண்ணில் கண்மணியானயான் மாறுவிடம் திருவிடை மருதே. திருச்சிற்றம்பலம். Today's verse talks about a beautiful way for us to get clarity in our spiritual path. As of now, the biggest problem that we are all facing is the 5 sense organs that is within us. If you can relate with this, our eyes is tempting us to go in one direction, whereas the nose is tempting us to get into another direction, and each and every organ is pulling us in different directions, and end of the day we are getting into a turmoil, into a whirlpool. Now, how do we get this sorted out? There's a beautiful example that is given here. The author, the saint Karuvoor Thevar says, if you can imagine a lake which is full of mud and it is not in a very clear manner, if you want to clear that particular water which is already full of, which is very muddish. As of today, we do something called as a reverse osmosis, right? Similar to that, there is a way to filter out all the muddy things in a lake. Can we do the same for our heart, for our thoughts? Yes. And the reverse osmosis process is nothing but Lord Shiva. He is the one who gets into our soul. He is the one making sure that all our turmoil, all our whirlpool comes to a standstill. Now, how is he doing it? He is the one who's so simple. He's such a simplistic person that he is a darling, a pupil in the devotee's eyes. So, why isn't possible that he is a darling in my eyes? It is because he is already a darling for us, but just that we did not realize it. The reason is, even today we can relate with this. We will be gazing at something, but if our thoughts or our heart is not there, we will not know, or we won't be able to register what we are seeing. So we will just be gazing at some object, but we will not even relate that we are gazing at it. So what should happen first is, our mind must come to a standstill. Mind must come to a standstill so our eyes can coordinate with the mind, and then we will be able to relate with what we are seeing. As of today, Lord Shiva is there in our eyes, just that we don't have the capacity to to realize that. So what he is doing is, he is working with our soul, he is working with our heart, he is working with our mind and intellect to make sure all these kind of whirlpools are getting to a standstill. He is just making sure that our heart is just coming to us, it's like in a meditative state. Once our mind achieves that, obviously we will know, because we are going to be in a present situation. When we are in the presence, we will be able to see the literal see of what we are able to see, what we are visualizing. That is what verse number 9 is all about. Our eyes will be able to see and relate with an object only when our mind is associated with that. When our mind is already in a turmoil, we won't be able to do so. So, Lord Shiva is first working with our heart, with our thoughts, with our mind, so that it can come to a standstill. Once it achieves the stillness, then our eyes, we will start to realize that he is the one who is the darling of our eyes. Once we realize that, he is going to be the one which is part of our eyes, which means whatever we see will only be taken as Lord Shiva itself. We won't be able to see anything other than Lord Shiva. That is what verse number 9 is all about. Sivaya Nama Tiruchitrambalam. And the finale verse, which is verse number 10, verse goes this way. Tiruchitrambalam. ஒருங்கீரும் கண்ணின் எண்ணின் புன்மாக்கள் உறங்கீருள் நடுநல் யாமத்து ஓர் கருங்கண்ணின்றி மைக்கும் செழுஞ்சுடர் விளக்கங்கு கலந்தென கலந்துணர் கருவோர் தருங்கரும்பானைய தீந்தமிழ் மாலை தடம்பொழில் மருதையாள் ஊதிப்ப வருங்கருங்கண்டத்து அண்டவானவர்கோன் மாறுவிடம் திருவிடை மாருதே. திருச்சிற்றம்பலம். This verse comes as a Falashruti, which is also called as Thirukadaikappu, to say what is going to be the benefit of a soul who is reading this padikam. We all know we will be working only in form or only when we are getting any kind of returns. Imagine we are all working hard, so hard to earn money. Why? Because we know the next time when we are hungry, we need to earn our food. Imagine a situation where we are not going to have hunger. Do you think we are going to be working so hard? No way. We will all be lazy. We will all be sitting around and lazing around as if it's nobody's business. So, there is an expectation from everything that we do. So, is there an expectation of reading a padikam? Yes, we do have it. So, if someone has an expectation, what is that they are going to achieve is given in this particular verse. So, here Karuvoor Thevar says, imagine someone sitting in a meditation and the entire night they are waking up and they are sitting in meditation. What will happen is, once they get onto the right state of maturity, Lord Shiva will come in the form of a glowing light to give them a clarity in their journey, spiritual journey. For the others, they'll be having a peaceful sleep in the night, and they won't be bothered about anything else. Similar to animals. Animals don't be bothered about sitting for meditation or whatever, right? They just have their sleep, and when they are hungry, they just hunt, and that's it. Other than that, they don't have any big purposes in life. So if I'm born as a human being, but I'm not going to work on my spiritual growth, I'm as good as an animal. So here Karuvoor Thevar says, as a human being, what we should be doing is sit for meditation the entire night. Alternatively, you can also sit and read this padikam. If we sit and read this padikam, what will happen is, we will start achieving the state of realization, or we will start achieving the state of yoga, and that is the state where Lord Shiva will come in as a glowing light to give us a clarity in our spiritual path. So what a shortcut that we are getting here, right? Instead of working so hard and waking up in the night and sitting for meditation and struggling with whatever is happening, all we have to do is practice our mind to read padikams on a regular basis, so that the state of yoga is already achieved, because there is already a synchronicity with our words, with our mind, as well as with our body, because when we are sitting and reading, all these comes into one synchronicity, and that is the state of yoga anyways. That is the advantage of reading padikams. So that is what verse number 10 is all about. I'll come back again with the next padikam very soon. Until then, Sivaya Nama, Thiruchitrambalam.